been thinking about it for a long time before it actually happened, and I was thinking of bringing people who I thought were kind of making a lot of waves here in their Filipino-ness, but yet have never been to the Philippines or left when they were still a little bit small. Al Robles never been there. Al Robles never been to the Philippines. Yet his poems and his images are all about our indigenous people and the carabaos and all this, and the food, the patis and the fish head. And I was wondering if I'd bring him there, whether I was just wanted, I wanted his reaction. And I made it a mission in my part, from my personal mission, if I could, to sort of bring him there when the time comes. So they all were willing to come, but of course, when he died and didn't make it, I made it a point to bring people there that same year that he died. So I named the trip the Al Robles Express.
Second day we were there, I sought out my grandfather's grave. He's buried in the military, in the American cemetery in Manila. And I wasn't expecting, I had really no connection with my grandfather because he died during World War II, and he was from the, he's Irish Italian, so I really wasn't having this connection. But when I got to the American cemetery, it sort of hit me about what my parents went through during World War II. All the stuff that I grew up with and get hints about that they don't really want to talk about, it was like getting a real sense of what went on. I mean, for me, a deep sense for me, to go and see my grandfather's grave there. I wasn't expecting it, but I started crying.
When we were searching for our relatives and wanted to touch base with any one of my father's relatives there in San Antonio, Zambales, we thought that finding a cousin would be, just wonderful.
We didn't really deliberately formalize the whole trip. We went to speak in different universities because some of us were educators, some of us were artists, some of us were musicians, but we were all concerned, or at least conscious, of the different layers of Filipino-ness that was in us. We just didn't know how to bring it out, or we were curious in seeing what kind of things it would bring out of us by meeting the people and seeing the places.
I never had balut before, and that was a trip. It's not so much the egg itself, but the fact that I was on this tour for, I forget what town it was, and it's just that I felt so comfortable with the tour guide, and this kid came around with a balut in a plastic bag, and the tour guide was just going in and eating, and it just felt so natural, and I felt so much like I was with everybody else when I did that. And that was really one of the, believe it or not, one of the highlights of my trip.
So that was also another purpose of the trip, is for people, if they wanted to check out some relatives or they were curious about where their people came from.
And so they went back to the books, and this was at the courthouse, and they looked up other relatives. They came back to us and said, I believe that we have found your father's daughter. And I was just amazed because I had not had any contact with her. I had never met her. All I knew was I just knew about her. And I couldn't believe it because I thought she would possibly be dead because she was many years older than I. And so we went to her house. They escorted us to her house. And I remember when they opened the door and they brought her out in the wheelchair, I just burst into tears. We both did. I handed her the photograph of my father, and she just held it to her heart and cried. And I cried with her. It was just a beautiful moment, and I didn't think I would ever have that. I just did not expect that. That was so unexpected. and very beautiful.
We said that, that's part of our mission is to wake up people about our stories, to tell our own stories, because we are inundated by the mainstream stories. They're all, especially you guys. Do you ever see, I asked them, Filipino-American stories on TV? No, you only see white stories, right? Because that's what most people around the world is when they show that. They have a distorted image of America, of the United States, because they only show the mainstream. So I said, we have our own story, so we're sort of fighting against the mainstream. And one of the teachers, poet there, said, we're doing the same thing here. We're writing in Waray, but all we are being inundated by Tagalog and English literature. So none of our people in the Waray have the incentive to write in Waray anymore because they're not going to be published. They're only publishing Tagalog or English. So that poet and that teacher and I and our group sort of worked some project together so that we can keep alive the writing and language of Waray in having a little contest. We'll help them fundraise here, and we'll pool our monies together so that we can have a contest of Waray poems, and at the same time they will translate into Waray some of our stories here. They're in English, but then they'll translate into Waray, and they'll take it all around the island and perform it in different stage shows, street theater. So they had a good idea. I said, yeah, I'll try to back you up if I can.
Now I want to go back, and I want to go to Baguio. I want to go up north, and if I get adventurous enough, I want to really go down south in different parts of Mindanao. It was a real worthwhile trip.